Y'all, we are only 5 episodes in and we haven't even made the merge yet, but still, I feel like there are only a few select players in this game that are really giving right now. Like, we have a couple people that are really standing out amongst the rest, but at the same time, there are others that seemingly have very little chance of making it, at least as far as the edit goes. I'm super excited to talk about all of that today and of course make my predictions, but first, before we get started, please make sure you hit that subscribe button below. I know there are some of you watching this video right now, but you're not even subscribed yet. So please make sure you are so that you can stay tuned as we continue with the rest of this season. Now, let's get started. So, as per usual this season, we're going to kick off this episode with the Green Tribe, of course, returning to camp after their last tribal council. Kyle and Kamilla are obviously in heaven because they just pulled off that badass move during the last tribal council. Meanwhile, Joe and Shauhin are just sitting there shook, like they got bad last episode. They did. Now, at first, it's kind of looking like Kyle is the one getting most of the pushback because of the last tribal council. Like, he's just being propped up as being this big threat because he was able to successfully find and use his idol. Meanwhile, Kamilla doesn't seem to be getting that same pushback, even though she was just as part of that plan as Kyle was. So at first, I'm actually kind of thinking that Kyle could be in the most trouble on this tribe going forward, but that is until we get to the personal stories later on. This part comes later in the episode, but I'm just going to talk about it now since we're talking about the Green Tribe. But yeah, we get this really long segment in this episode where we hear pretty much everybody in this Green Tribe, except for Kyle really. We hear them bonding over all of the hurdles that their parents had to cross in order to get them where they are. We hear these immigration stories from Kamilla and Shauhin, and we hear Joe talk about how his parents grew up as sharecroppers in the Jim Crow South and all of the racism and the hurdles that they had to face as a result of that, which I really related to on a personal note because I'm also a descendant of sharecroppers, and my mom has shared similar stories with me about growing up working in the fields of Mississippi and having to deal with segregation and racism and all that stuff. So it was overall just nice to be able to hear everyone's stories and hear everybody talk about where they really came from. I think overall this segment really just showed us how much this group was able to bond and come together despite all the stuff they just went through with the last tribal council. And in my opinion, this whole segment is just setting up this four to be a tight group going forward. Like, when it is eventually time to go to the merge, I can really see this group of four sticking together and not trying to get each other out, at least at the beginning. Next up, they all go to the reward challenge, which really isn't too interesting on its own, but I do want to point out the semi-awkward interaction between Say and Mary. Mary is out there talking about how much food their tribe has now that they've won and how full they've been and all this stuff. And Say is basically saying that at this point, they're just gloating or bragging a little too much. Now, to me, from what I saw, it didn't seem like Mary was trying to brag too much, but again, I know that a lot is cut out and obviously this is an edited show. So it didn't really seem that deep to me, but at the same time, I'll acknowledge that I have never been that hungry or starving or miserable that they probably are out there. So at the same time, I also don't want to judge too much, right? So still, I don't think I would have taken it quite as personally as Say did, but hey, her reaction is her reaction. The Purple Tribe wins this reward, and as a treat, they are allowed to go to the sanctuary to enjoy some nice little snacks. I'm not gonna lie, the spread here actually looks pretty good, okay? They have multiple snacks, multiple little pastries, they have coffee, tea, and fresh juice. It definitely looked better than that bullshit last year when they gave everybody one plain hot dog. Gross. Now, I do want to point out that once again, they are giving us very unnecessary and very personal content about David for whatever reason. I feel like they've already spent damn near every episode talking about how poor this guy is, and now we have to hear about how much he loves milk and how he has to drink it every day. First off, ew. Sorry, not sorry. I can't relate at all. The thought of drinking any fluid from an animal's body is just gross to me. So overall, I just don't do cow milk in general. But come on. why are we hearing so much crap about David? Like, why? Like I said, it's been damn near every single episode so far, and he really hasn't done much of anything in the game. So even though all this personal content is pretty weird, I do still see it as a positive overall for David, because it's like this guy has to be really important to this season somehow, some way, right? I don't feel like he's done anything to really assert himself as a winner so far, but right now I can maybe see him making it to the end, maybe being a 0-vote finalist or something. I don't know. I'm just going to continue to keep an eye on this man. And the last thing I wanted to point out on this tribe is apparently there's this beef now between Charity and Eva. Eva does not like Charity and she thinks she's fake, but it's not really explained on the show. Like, we're not really shown a reason for all this. So I'm not really sure what's going on there, but my main takeaway is that unfortunately, I still don't think Charity is going to be around for too long. Especially given what happens later on in this episode, unfortunately, I can just see Charity leaving very soon. Meanwhile, on the Orange Tribe, we have my favorite drama, which is food drama, going on between Sei and Chrissy. Apparently, there's some tension between these two because Sei had chosen to sit out of the challenge earlier, and I guess Chrissy really wanted to sit out too. So now Chrissy's out there being the fruit police, and she's monitoring every piece of fruit that Sei's eating, which of course is on getting Sei's nerves because Sei's like, hello, I'm a grown-ass woman, why are you watching me like that? Which this just ends up being a complete mess. Honestly, I don't really know why Chrissy maybe didn't speak up more as to wanting to sit out the challenge. And overall, all this mess is just leading Sei to now be the main target on her tribe. Sei really wants Chrissy out. Chrissy really wants Sei out. Bianca's stuck in the middle. Honestly, it's all a mess, but at this point, I am so sure that this tribe is going to be the next ones going to tribal. Eventually, the players all go to the next immunity challenge, which we see is a classic ocean comp with a maze at the end. And in this competition, we can see that Eva is up there really struggling with the maze, and the camera keeps on flashing to Joe, which we can tell he really wants to help, but he just can't. And eventually Eva is able to pull out the win, but she does have a bit of an episode in the meantime, and that is where we see Joe go up to console her. Now, obviously, this is just playing out in front of everybody, so there is a little bit of a risk there when it comes to exposing who you're really close to. But at that point, I don't really think either of them were really thinking of the game like that, right? Like, it was definitely worth it in order to get Eva to overcome this thing and feel okay again. This whole thing just ended up being a very sweet moment, and it really made Joe to look like the hero, even though I don't really think he was trying to be heroic or anything like that. I really truly believe that he was just trying to do the right thing. But this is a big emotional moment, and as we see, it even makes Jeff freaking cry. Not only that, but later on when they all go to camp, we see that this whole episode was enough to make Star comfortable with sharing her beware advantage to everybody, which was just absolutely crazy to me. And I have a lot of mixed feelings about this whole saga, because it's like, on one hand, having a public idol is just dangerous, right? Because it makes you a target. But on the other hand, it's been what, like 9 or 10 days since Star first found this advantage, and she still hasn't been able to crack the code on her own. On top of that, and this is just me speculating, right? Like, maybe she feels like this rivalry between her and Eva is just slowly dying day by day. And maybe, even though it's some of the same people, maybe, just maybe, Star feels a little bit more comfortable on this tribe than she did her old tribe. Now, what I did not understand at all at first is why in the hell Star would choose to just freely give up her idol and pass it over to Eva. Like, on the surface, this definitely seems like the dumbest move ever, right? But it may just turn out to help Star a little bit more than we think it will. Hear me out on this. First of all, yes, obviously it does help build a little bit of trust between Star and Eva. That much we know. But since his idol is now public knowledge, like I was saying earlier, having an idol like this in the game could hurt you and actually make you more of a target than it could save you. So Star not having this idol could actually lower her threat level in the short run, at least. I mean, overall, I still kind of hate the position that Star is in, but I will say I feel like she's in a much better position at the end of this episode than she was at the beginning. Meanwhile, let's head on over to the Orange Tribe, who is preparing to go to Tribal Council for the first time after losing that competition. Now, Bianca is definitely in the trickiest position of this tribe because she doesn't even have a vote, but she does have a few tricks. Bianca is stuck between two sides, and at first it doesn't seem like she really cares about which one leaves as long as it's not her. And she's able to deduce that if they are stuck on a 2-2 vote, then she can just stay in the middle and be completely safe. Now, Cedrek is also in a bit of a tricky position here because he's been wanting to work with Chrissy and Mitch ever since the tribe swap, but he still has this bond with Say, and I think he trusts her just a little bit more than he trusts them just because of their shared history. So right now, things do seem kind of murky, but overall, it does feel like we're still headed towards that 2-2 split with Say going home. But that is until Bianca starts to do something messy. She decides to go up to Cedrek at the very, very last minute and tell him that she does not have that vote. And while she's doing all of this, she's simultaneously asking him to vote out Say, which is like his person in the game. Obviously, this is a very risky move, but at the time, y'all, I'm not gonna lie, I am so here for this moment. Like, I was so convinced that Bianca had this thing in the bag and that her plan was gonna work out flawlessly and that Say was gonna go home. Like, I really thought they had been setting us up for all of that this whole episode. So, of course, later on, when we get to the votes, I could not believe that Bianca was actually the one who was voted out here. Like, for real, shout out to the editing team because they really got me on this one. I was so shook. They did such a good job of making me believe that Say would be the one to leave, and I think that's probably because Say was supposed to be the one to leave until Bianca ended up snitching on herself. I loved watching Bianca strategize in this episode, so I was really sad to see her go out this early, but man, what a way to leave. I really hope that there's time for them to go back in the next episode and explain the steps that Cedrek took in order to get Bianca voted out. Because it really didn't seem like there was that much time left at all. Like, it seemed like Bianca really did go up to him at the very last minute to try to get this done. So hopefully some of that is cleared up in this next episode, which does happen to be the merge, which of course is very exciting, even though it is very, very hard to predict what's going to happen from here. I think overall right now, I am really, really high on that green tribe. And honestly, I can see any of those four making it all the way to the end and winning. Those four are honestly my top right now, but I am going to go ahead and throw David's name in the hat too, just because the editors seem to love him so much and they just won't shut up about David. Like I said earlier, I unfortunately don't feel that great about Charity still, and I sadly could see her time coming up very soon. And I don't really think Say or Chrissy are doing that great either, despite them both being able to slip through the cracks in this episode. I feel like Chrissy and her point of view just get ignored in the story a little too much for me to consider her a winner. And although I think Say is a really good and assertive player, the problem with her is that she is making that very, very obvious and pretty much everybody can see it. So unfortunately right now I can't see her lasting too long, but hey, maybe she'll surprise me. Of course, I want to know, what do you all think of this episode, and who are the players that are starting to stand out to you the most? Who are you loving right now? Who are you hating right now? Let me know in the comments below. I am really, really excited to see what's going to happen when everybody merges on the same beach together, especially since to me it really takes seeing a player go through tribal council in order to see how good they really are. So of course I'll be back here next week to talk about the merge and the next episode with you all, but until then, peace.